Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We are mere hours away from Super Bowl 58. I know I've been really excited about it. 2 weeks off is always difficult, but we are just about here. A few housekeeping notes before we get into a very, very deep analysis on this game to hopefully add to your enjoyment, your own great knowledge base, and maybe if you're gambling, get a little edge in that market. Remember my free Super Bowl notes? Just go to my X at Jim Coventry NFL. Pinned to my profile as a tweet. Just like it, retweet it. And if you don't get those, the link DM to you by Saturday, just hit me up again because I should catch it. A couple of them slipped through the cracks, but I will get you those notes. Again, at Jim Coventry NFL. Also, if you want even more Super Bowl coverage, you can catch me Saturday and Sunday on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87 from 1 to 3 Eastern. Saturday with Mario Puig, Sunday with Alan Soslowski. And then remember, after the Super Bowl, you're going to want to recap this game. A couple ways to catch that where you're watching right now, 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday with Anthony Servino. We'll react to the Super Bowl. In the evening, 8 to 10 Eastern, Sirius Fantasy Sports Channel 87. I'll be on from 8 to 10. Anyway, after that Monday RotoWire live show, this show, we were going to take a couple weeks off, come back in March. All right, here we go, everybody. So last night, I gave an impromptu Twitter rant, idea, thought. I only did it on Twitter. Usually I set up my main streams ahead of time, so I'm going to give that again here. This is an important one if you're betting the game. So the 49ers have been a 2-point favorite since the very, very beginning. The line opened, it moved a little bit, but it's stuck at 49ers -2. It's well over a week. A couple books have gone to 2.5, but again, that's toward the 49ers. The over and under is 47.5. And I'm very concerned about that line movement because when I found out, I checked out the Action Network, I checked out BetMGM, and it indicates that it's not just that 70% of the bets against the spread are going toward the Chiefs. The money is going that way. BetMGM says 70% of the total handle. So sometimes you have a lot of small bets, and then obviously the sharp, bettors with big money are putting it in imbalances. That's not the case here. It is 70% Chiefs money. And then obviously the line only 2. Some people are just going to the money line. And so that is 77% of the handle to the Chiefs. And look, the betting industry got that way based on people losing. And usually they want the money balanced on both sides of a bet because they get the vig or the juice. So they want it, 50-50, and then they get that 10% or whatever the minus odds from the people that lost. And that's how they make their money. It's great if the public completely whiffs on a side. But the fact they haven't moved the line, it tells me they want as much action on the Chiefs as they can get. I had the marathon earlier in the week. About 80% of those analysts expect they wanted the Chiefs. They're taking the Chiefs. Everybody's going Chiefs. So again, my final point is this. If Vegas is telling you, take the Chiefs, we're not moving the line, we're going to keep it attractive for you, and 70% of the money's on them, Vegas believes the Chiefs are going to lose that bet because there's no way they are handing out free money. Now, look, anybody can win any game. We understand that. But Vegas is making a loud and clear statement that they expect the 49ers to cover this number. Otherwise, they would have moved that line to a pick 'em, if not Kansas City favored, and they'd still be getting a high percentage of the bets, in my opinion. So just be careful when you're breaking this game down because the big narrative that's driving Kansas City, and it's a great narrative, it's don't ever bet against Patrick Mahomes. And it's a great narrative. And how do you argue with it? He is, he's the Michael Jordan of, Tom Brady was. And now, but for today, he's like the Michael Jordan, right? And so I get it. But again, Tom Brady lost games. And we've seen Patrick Mahomes lose some games. And this has not been a banner season. So just be very careful. Also, the other betting angle, 64% of the bets are to the over. And that line hasn't moved from 47.5. This has been the season of the unders. And we'll talk about this when we break this down later. There is value in the under, but let's get to the game. All right. So here we go. Injury report very quickly. Left guard Joe Thuney. Again, they're trying to get him. There's a 4 to 6 week pectoral injury he has. And obviously he's only a few weeks out on it. He's not really close, but they're doing whatever they can to see if they could put him on the field. I mean, it seems clear that he would play. He'd be nowhere close to 100%. So I'm assuming he's out. The Red Yahoo Sports this morning, they said the chances were slim. Again, don't expect him. Now, the big loss with Tooney is in pass protection. He's a left guard. He's a good run blocker, but the whole thing is that pass blocking, he is elite in the middle. And then they go to Nick Allegretti, who takes over. Now, Allegretti played a lot in 2022. It was mostly at the center position. So it's even a slightly out of position for him. So this is a hit to their offense, especially the pass blocking. Weird. Rashee Rice was added to the injury report. Normally we think it's maintenance, but they put ankles with an S, 2 ankles on the injury report. That's odd because normally you would just put ankle and then just call it a day if it was maintenance, and you would just have to put some dummy injury on there that really isn't happening, but you put it on there. The fact they put 2, it does raise an eyebrow. Did he ding up his ankles? So that's something to keep an eye on in Friday practice. But if he's not 100%, that would really hurt the Chiefs. Because remember, the Chiefs have become all about Pacheco, and then Kelsey, and then Rice. They really have limited everybody else that Mahomes gets the ball to. And that would be a very, very catastrophic loss if Rice is, he's not going to miss the game, of course. But if he is anywhere under 100%, that really hurts him because he banks on that yardage after the catch. This shouldn't be a big deal. Sky Moore's been activated from IR, but in his last 5 games, he only caught 5 passes for 43 yards and 8 targets. So my guess is not a significant role. Jerick McKinnon is not playing here. So they had him on the IR to return. He's not going to be playing. Other than that, the only other injury I want to recap is the edge rusher, Charles Omenihu for the Chiefs. He injured his ACL, tore his ACL in the AFC Championship game. He's a bigger body and he can set the edge a little bit in run defense. And that's going to be a potential loss. Mike Dana, much smaller, not the same type of player. And the 49ers can get a further advantage in the running game. Those are the injury reports. So we're going to break this game down the following way. We're going to talk about the 49ers rushing attack, getting a deep detail on that. Then the 49ers passing, and then we'll do the same for the Chiefs. And then we'll predict this thing out, and we'll call it a day. All right, so 49ers rushing attack. Now, Kyle Shanahan has really evolved. So we know the Shanahan zone scheme, and that still is the premise of that rushing attack. It's been successful. Obviously, his dad was running it a long, long time ago, and many other coaches have used it, in the NFL and been very successful. But the league as a whole has gotten better of defending zone runs with lighter boxes. They've had to be creative, and they've gotten some successful answers. So what Shanahan has done, they're using more trap blocks. They're using more counter plays. And so they're mixing it up. They have a bigger menu of runs right now. And so if they see a defense overplaying, they are able to have other answers to them. And of the offensive line blockers, obviously we know left tackle Trent Williams is elite. The only other lineman of the 4 left that's even serviceable, in my opinion, is center Jake Brendel. He's very good when he's on the move. Sometimes they'll take the center and they'll pull him. He can do that fairly well. He's okay. He's nothing special. The other linemen are not good. So how do the 49ers get this run game going? There's 2 players that get involved. Now, Kyle Juszczyk, he could play anywhere from 25 to 40 snaps in a game. Kyle Juszczyk is a fullback. Sometimes they'll line him up in an I formation. Sometimes they'll line him up in motion. Sometimes they'll line him up in the tight end position. But he often gets on the move, and he will take out a defender. And he's very good at angling his blocks. And obviously, he knows the play design, and it gives McCaffrey extra lanes to run him. And then, of course, George Kittle. George Kittle is a phenomenal run blocker. And again, like Juszczyk, he can do it in line. He could do it on the move. And so between Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and Jake Brendel, the center, a little bit, and then Kittle, they can mitigate the weaker blocking of the other linemen because the responsibilities don't hurt the rushing game. And of course, when you have Christian McCaffrey, how much do you need? But again, the system is perfect for McCaffrey. Now, McCaffrey has at least 91 yards in 10 of his last 11 regular season games, and he scored a touchdown in all but 3 of those games. And he was getting 5 or more targets to end the regular season in 7 of his last 9 games. So he was heavily involved, of course, as a receiver as well. But his workload as a runner has never been crazy. Like in the playoffs, he had 17 carries against Green Bay, turning in 98 yards and a couple touchdowns. He had 7 catches in that game. Yardage wasn't big. And then, of course, against the Lions, he had 20 carries. And that was one of his higher totals of the season. And that went for 90 yards and a couple touchdowns as well. And he put up 42 receiving yards. So as we know, you don't need me to tell you, Christian McCaffrey has been a beast. Now, the Chiefs defensively, they are not a good run defense. You look at certain metrics and say, oh, this is not a bad run defense. But here's the issue that we have to deal with. Many teams haven't run a lot against them. There were two teams that won 2 games in which a team committed to the run against them, and that was both games against the Raiders. And in those 2 games, Josh Jacobs went 20 for $110, Zamir White 22 for $145. But even during the season, there were running backs that had lesser carries and were very effective. Raheem Mostert in the regular season game had about 7 yards a carry. In the regular season game against James Cook, he was 5.8 yards per carry. Even A.J. Dillon was over 4 yards a carry, barely. DeAndre Swift was over 6 yards a carry. So many running backs have had success against them. And the Chiefs are a great pass defense, but their linebackers are active. But this is not a very good run defense, especially you're facing McCaffrey. You're facing now a varied rushing attack, not just the Shanahan zone. Again, traps and counters. They have a menu, and this is not going to be a good situation. And also, we look at, and this is part of the game, McCaffrey's a receiver. And when we look at the linebackers, Willie Gay, he's supposed to play here. Willie Gay, you want to get him matched up on McCaffrey when you can. If you can get Kittle on him, that's great. He's a liability in coverage. Drew Tranquil will step in and rotate in. He's pretty average, but like Nick Bolton, Leo Chanel, not so much. They're below average in coverage. That is not good at all. So this is a part of the game the 49ers can attack, especially if they're looking at some funky fronts from the Chiefs. They could easily motion out McCaffrey and just run him up against a linebacker who they mark. And so that's a very attackable area. So here's my thought. We never know what a coaching staff's going to do. So take this for what it's worth. But I don't think that Kyle Shanahan wants to go into this game saying, I'm going to make this the Brock Purdy offense against the Patrick Mahomes offense. This is a big stage for Purdy. Purdy's been great for what he's done, but this is a really big stage against a very good defensive coordinator. Now, so let me make my point about McCaffrey first, and then I'll talk about the coaching, and then I'll get to the passing game. So with McCaffrey, look, he's had 2 weeks off coming into this game. The 49ers don't have a week coming up after this. I'm sorry about these emojis. I don't know how that happens. But anyway, I think with no game after this week, the 49ers could do what they haven't done with McCaffrey since they acquired him. They've limited his workload. He's had a solid workload, but I keep saying we could see that Carolina Panthers McCaffrey workload, 2 weeks of rest. Like I said, no game after that. You could use him up in this game, and McCaffrey, will be all in on that. The harder they ride him, the tougher it becomes for the Chiefs. They're not going to have answers against him. And if they stack the box to do that, you've got Kittle, you've got Ayuk, you've got Deebo Samuel. So realistically, you really open up a death trap if you sell out to stop McCaffrey. And even when you do, the 49ers against stacked boxes have been outstanding running the ball all year long. And the Chiefs personnel does not dictate to me that's going to be the case. Now, before I get to the 49ers passing game, let's talk for a minute about the coaching here. And rightfully so, we hear a lot about Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs. He is an amazing defensive coach. He cooks up incredible game plans to take things away from opposing offenses. Timed out blitzes are always done extremely well. They'll blitz Trent McDuffie out of the slot. They're very good about, simulating pressures, making it look like people are coming, drop them out in the coverage, send somebody else. Very, very good. So all that said, Spags is a great coach. Don't forget about Kyle Shanahan. Look, I know he lost a 28-3 Super Bowl, and I know he lost a Super Bowl, Super Bowl 30 or 54 against the same Chiefs team. Kyle Shanahan is still one of the best play designers in the game. And this has to be in his mind, his moment. He has those 2 big losses. And yes, I'm sure they weigh heavily on him. This is the best offensive collection of players he'll ever have. It won't be close having those 4 dream teamers on his offense. And this is his shot. And he has spent those 2 weeks planning up ways to outflank Spagnuolo. And believe me, Kyle Shanahan can do that. So again, I do think he goes into this game though, making McCaffrey the focal point. And so when you're going to talk about betting and props later, I do think McCaffrey is going to be a way to look. But let's talk about that 49ers passing game and how this shakes up here. Now, in terms of pass protection, the 49ers offensive line, they have Trent Williams again at left tackle, and he's great. And when Kittle has to stay in to block the tight end, he's obviously great for what he does. But really, everybody else on that offensive line is not a very good pass. We have average pass protectors. But here's how the 49ers overcome that and why I rate their pass protection as at least average. It's because they get the ball out so quickly. Sometimes they'll use play action, but other times those quick design plays that immediately scheme a receiver into space. Think Deebo Samuel. They may get the ball in his hands quickly, very frequently. And the big thing with the Chiefs are they tackle very well. But when you have to tackle Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, that makes it interesting because this isn't just tackling dudes. This is tackling like the dudes. And that is not necessarily going to be something that is going to be an automatic for them because these, the Samuel and McCaffrey duo, they will break tackles. They will force, defenders to shake loose. They do have an advantage here. So again, the pass protection, it's only mitigated by the offense. Eddie, good morning. So overall, now I did say that they want to run a run-centric offense, most likely. That's my guess of what Shanahan will do here. They're going to pass. And like I mentioned a moment ago, I think Deebo has to be involved. Early in my initial game thoughts about this, I thought that maybe Deebo lines up in the slot about 40% of the time. Trent McDuffie is an first-team all-pro slot corner. I did think there could be issues with that, but basically they could use Deebo Samuel as you use a queen on the chessboard. You can use him as a runner. You can use him on tosses. You could get him wherever you want, but I'm not convinced that he can't beat McDuffie. Deebo Samuel, again, like I said about Shanahan versus Spags, don't just say because they have great cover people, all of a sudden we are icing out the 49ers receivers. That's not necessarily the case. I do think Deebo's in a good spot. Morning, Lee. So that is something to very much consider. Now, on the other hand, Brandon Ayuk, I am a little bit concerned because realistically, L'Jarius Sneed, outside corner, he will move. And I do believe they will have him on Brandon Ayuk. And look, Ayuk again is another star, but I think L'Jarius Sneed is in that category where Ayuk could get a big play. He could break something, but I am not optimistic that he wins on a regular basis against Snead. And I don't think the 49ers will mind sacrificing Ayuk to him to allow, again, Deebo, McCaffrey, Kittle to cook. They might take some shots at Ayuk. They might do some shorter than usual stuff to get the ball in his hands. I just don't see this being a big Ayuk game because the matchup would be really difficult. But here's the big deal. It's George Kittle. Oh, great. Stupid phone. I'm turning it down. Sorry about that. Anyway, so with Kittle, I can turn my sleep on here. So with Kittle, he has a great advantage in the matchup here. Now, Kittle, when he ended the regular season, he had at least 68 yards in 3 of his last 4 games and in 9 of his last 14 games. So he was really cooking. Now, his touchdown totals on the season were a little skewed because he had 3 touchdowns in 1 game. But in the playoffs, in the divisional round, he only went 4 for 82 and a touchdown. Not only, that was a great game. He had 82 and a touchdown. That was a big one. He came back where I said only was against the Lions, 2 for 27, but only 3 targets. They didn't make him a focal point of the attack, but he got the 7 targets against the Packers, and certainly he did click here. Now, the safeties for the Chiefs, you got Mike Edwards and Justin Reed. They have both struggled in coverage all year. They are below average. And this is a big matchup advantage for George Kittle. And whether they use him on play action, design routes, of course, he'll need to block some, but this is a very exploitable matchup. And again, if they get him on linebackers, Willie Gay, as I said earlier, liability and coverage. The other corners, like Bolton, Chanel, below average. And then we also have it with Drew Tranquil, who's about average. So this is, again, a play action fiesta that they may be able to take advantage of. And then when you also think about the passing game, don't forget McCaffrey, especially if Spagnuolo is dialing up those blitzes. We could have McCaffrey as a quick hot read. When they see the simulated pressure come up, they may just motion McCaffrey out of the backfield. And then all of a sudden, you got an opportunity to dump the ball to him quick. If the Chiefs have less bodies and coverage, McCaffrey could get extra yards in the receiving game. So overall, Again, like I said, I think they're not going to focus on the passing game, the 49ers are, but I do believe that they're going to have areas that they could be very successful in. And like Lee says, yep, huge McCaffrey game. That has to be. They have to make this not a Brock Purdy game. And like I always tell everybody, I'm telling you these different things. We never know how a coaching staff will really, play this out. But we have to make our guess, right? We have studied these games for 20 weeks and we have to make our guess of how they'll do this. They've had time to prepare it. But again, you never know when a Baltimore Ravens coaching staff's going to show up and say, oh, we're not going to run against this team, or we're not going to defend Kelsey with more than one person. And then you're out of the playoffs. So we never know when that's going to happen. All right, let's swing to the Chiefs side of the ball here. And let's go to the Chiefs rushing attack. So like we know, Isaiah Pacheco has been a very, very fun runner to watch. He's been getting down the stretch. He was getting 15 to 19 carries a game and 4 to 7 targets. That was ending the regular season down the stretch. But in the playoffs, they rode him hard. He had 2 games out of the 3 with 24 carries, and he had a 15 carry game in the divisional round. And now the yardage hasn't always been great. Even in the cold against Miami, 24 for 89. That was less than 4 yards a carry. The conference championship round against Baltimore, 24 for 68. That wasn't even 3 yards per carry. Now, in the division round, it's 15 against Buffalo, went for 97. So there was like some real nice hope there. That was over 6 yards a carry. But you're hearing he's not that runner who is taking the most advantage from an every play standpoint. We see him run hot. But if defenses decide, to fill the gap and they kind of chase the run, he can get that 1 yard loss, that 0 yard game. And if it's on first down, it puts him in an obvious passing situation. Pacheco, again, the defense is often, they have to defend the pass against Mahomes. Now, the Chiefs will run a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets, and they do like to pass out of that. But when they have a numbers advantage, they will run. The 49ers will answer usually with base personnel when the opponent comes out in heavy sets. And I think they'll do that here. And I do think, again, Pacheco will be effective on the ground, but it's not the sustainer type. I think he'll get a couple of those bigger runs. He'll get a 15. He'll get an 18. But I don't think we're going to see a steady diet of, 3, 5, 4, and all these that just move the chains. I think it's going to be a little more boom or bust. And I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain that rushing attack. They're going to have to get the game from Patrick Mahomes. Pacheco will be part of their success, but I think if the 49ers say, you know what, Pacheco, you're going to beat us, he won't. On occasion he will, but for the 4 quarters, it won't happen. Now, the 49ers run defense, yes, it has been bad in the playoffs. Aaron Jones shredded them in the conference championship game. Jahmyr Gibbs shredded them. David Montgomery did really well against them. Now, I want to make a couple points here. First of all, Aaron Jones was playing hot for 5 weeks. Fresh legs because he hadn't played much of the season, and he's a superstar, absolute superstar. Whether you like him or not, he is that player. And with no A.J. Dillon, he gets the carries, and all of a sudden he dominates games. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, excellent running back duo. The offensive line, even without Jonah Jackson for the Lions, was kicking tail. They are an amazing offensive line. The 49ers had no answer for either of these rushing attacks. This is not the same. The Chiefs' offensive line is not a great offensive line. Now, like I said earlier, they'll go 2 and 3 tight end sets. They'll get bodies in the advantage. And so they do bolster a weak offensive line with numbers. And so there is that, and that does help them. But both of their tackles, Donovan Smith, Juwan Taylor, they're liabilities in run blocking. They're about average in pass pro, but they are just liabilities in run blocking. So they have to help them with tight ends. And then when you go to the interior, Joe Thuney. Again, we don't expect him to play. It might be a miracle and he shows up, but he, as a run blocker, he's a dominant pass protector, average run blocker. And so him being out, and you go to Nick Allegretti, like I said earlier, he had done some work as a center in 2022. He steps in here. This is a clear downgrade. Now, the strength of this line is center Creed Humphrey and right guard Trey Smith, and they are way, way above average in run blocking. They're very good run blockers. So they are the anchors here. But like I'm pointing out, the teams that have really gotten to the 49ers have been great at getting the ball outside. When I think about Pacheco, yes, he gets outside runs. Of course he does. But he is at his best when he's downhill That's his best game. And the 49ers are not terrible against it, especially when they know that's coming. It's tough against the Lions because the Lions can run every type of run, and they were very hard to defend. The Packers' best success, like I said, was getting it outside. I don't think that the Chiefs have a great run game advantage here, as I detailed with Isaiah Pacheco earlier. He'll get a couple big gains for sure. But like I said earlier, don't look for the sustaining game. So all that said, the 49ers against the run, basically, they're a pass rushing defensive line. That's what they're about. Javon Hargrave on the interior, not a good run blocker. Eric Armstead's okay. Again, better at crushing the pocket. Nick Bosa is a good run defender, but he's one. And Chase Young, you want to run at him. But again, I don't know that their game is running to the outside for the Chiefs, so it may not expose him a whole lot. This is where the 49ers get interesting, because when they face 2 and 3 tight end sets, they, like I said earlier, they will bring an extra body in. They won't play nickel against that. And I think that'll benefit them here. And so I do think they could match up with the heavy sets, and they can have a better advantage than they would otherwise, because I do think just Noah Gray and Blake Bell on the field, I don't think that swings a huge gap to the Chiefs. I think the 49ers can take advantage of that a little bit. I think they're in good shape here. So all that said, Pacheco gets a good game, a couple big runs, but probably not a great game. He'll get carries because I think they do want to run the ball. But now let's go to the passing attack. And of course, I mean, it starts and ends with Patrick Mahomes. Any superlative and positive you say about him can't be argued. But remember, and I'll go back to the regular season, and I'll tell you the postseason in terms of numbers wasn't a lot different. Mahomes, to end the season, he had like 1 touchdown pass in 5 of his last 6 games, and he rarely had a big yardage game. He was not. It was like his biggest yardage game was 262 in the wild card round, and that's going back like 7 weeks. So he's not been a big yardage guy these days. And in the divisional round, I mean, the wild card game, that was his 262, and that was the freezing game in Miami. He was all banged up on defense. But then even against Buffalo, now they only threw 23 passes, so 215 yards on that. It was good for what he did. And then against Baltimore, 30 of 39 for 241 and 1 touchdown. So in the playoffs, he has 1 touchdown, 2 against the Bills, and then 1. So again, he's not putting up these eye-popping numbers. In the game against Baltimore, he got those touchdowns early, and then you notice they couldn't even move the chains in the second half when Baltimore came out with a plan that they didn't come out to start the game with. Now, give Andy Reid credit. He came out with a lot of screens and a lot of Kelsey in those first couple drives, and the Ravens weren't ready for it. Now, I assume with 2 weeks off, Steve Wilks, of the 4 main coaches in this game, consider Andy Reid runs the offense and Spagnuolo the defense for Kansas City, and then Shanahan runs the offense for the 49ers. The weak link of the 4 is Steve Wilks. And of that, if the whole coaching staff worked together, if John Lynch, the GM, even stepped in a little bit and talked up a little bit, if they had a team effort, they may come up with some really good answers for Kansas City. As you saw with their passing game, since they had their bye in week 10, they played the Eagles in week 11. That's when they threw Justin Watson 11 targets. And I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? Rashee Rice was cooking going into the bye. I thought they'd certainly come out with a plan. After that game, they did it. It's most games, Rice is getting 9 to 12 targets. Kelsey's getting all that he can handle. And it's become a very narrow tree. Valdes-Scantling will get an occasional target. Watson will get an occasional target. Mecole Hardman may get a gadget play here or there, but they don't get much of that. So basically, if you're defending Mahomes in this passing attack and you have 2 weeks to coach this one up, to me, it's super logical. You come up with a plan for Kelsey. You come up with a plan for Rice. And then if the other guys beat you, God bless them. Like I said earlier, you probably let Pacheco do what he's going to do. No special attention on him. Fine. Whatever he does, he does. It's not in Mahomes' hands. The 49ers had the personnel to deal with the Chiefs receivers. Rashee Rice will play on the outside about half of the time. The 49ers would be foolish not to put Charvarius Ward on him. They may not always travel their corners. This is a game for the world championship. And if they don't come out and do that and they put Ambry Thomas on him or Diamador Lenoir, that is not a plus matchup. They put Ward on him. I have a hard time thinking on those outside snaps that Rice is going to do a lot of damage. When Rice kicks into the slot, The 49ers, and I know Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta got him, but this has been a great pass defense in the middle of the field. They should be willing to take their chances that they can handle Rice in the middle of the field. But again, those outside plays, Ward is especially effective getting physical with a receiver. And we've seen Rice catching the short passes, getting lots of yards after the catch. If Charvarius Ward is on him getting physical with him, A, I don't know that look to Rice is even there. B, I don't know how much yardage after the catch he's getting. I do believe the 49ers would not have to do much to really, really limit his effectiveness in this game. Now, after Rice went bananas in the wild card game, 130 yards and a touchdown in the divisional round, he only had 4 targets against Buffalo, 4 for 47. Now, Mahomes didn't throw much in that game. So that's part of the deal. He did get 9 targets against the Ravens, caught 8, only 46 yards. And they held him down in the second half very much. That was only less than 6 yards per catch. And the 49ers could learn from the Ravens. And again, with Ward, they could hold him down. And if they do, now all of a sudden, you made it a Kelsey and Pacheco game, and you've eliminated Rice. So how do you deal with Kelsey? I'll tell you what you don't do. You don't do what the Ravens did. The Ravens, it was like whoever was in the area took him. Some plays was Arthur Marlette, dumb. Some plays was corner Brandon Stevens. Not terribly dumb, but not strong. Kelsey's winning that all day long. There were plays when Kyle Hamilton was on him, and Mahomes made a beautiful throw to Kelsey on a touchdown. But at least when Hamilton that was a good matchup. The 49ers have options here. They could choose to put multiple players on him. Fred Warner does take away a lot of the middle of the field. We've seen in past years, Fred Warner can eliminate the best tight ends in the game. He is still playing at that level. They don't frequently use him that way. But in a game for all the marbles, with everything on the line, at least on obvious passing downs, if they decided to say, Warner, take out Kelsey, if they played, let's say they played together the whole game, I don't know how Kelsey goes better than 4 for 40 in that matchup. Fred Warner is an elite superstar player. Kelsey is still a star, aging. Kelsey's admitted he doesn't have what he once had, but he still has that connection with Mahomes. But if Fred Warner's on him, it's going to be very, very tough for him to shake, and especially to get any yardage after the catch. We could get a bunch of 4-yard catches, so that's it. Lee points out, like I said, I like Warner there. I don't like the slot corner on him. Diamondor Lenoir will get manhandled by him, and I have to think that if Warner's not on him, they are going to find some kind of a double team they're going to have to go with. Look, if you're in this game, you cannot go in coaching saying, all right, we're not gonna put everything we can to sell out Kelsey. You've got to make Mahomes uncomfortable. You got to make him in with Valdez Scantling or Watson or Noah Gray or even with those slaps and Blake Belzin. You want them with those guys. You can handle Rice, but even then, you don't want that comfort of him, Mahomes, being able to go to Kelsey all day long. But again, we don't know what these coaching staffs will do. We saw Baltimore not have a plan, like I said earlier. So that's a very big concern we have to consider ourselves with. Now, when the 49ers played Green Bay, they held Musgrave to 3 for 14 and Tucker Kraft for 3 for 9. He did score, but then Sam Laporta burned him up 9 for 97. So, I mean, again, Laporta can line up as a receiver a lot. Obviously, Kelsey they're obviously both two of the better tight ends in the league. But again, the 49ers never sold out to stop Laporta. Laporta was never the only player you had to stop. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, you got David Montgomery. But this game flips because Kelsey is their number one player. So it completely changes the strategy here. Now, tight ends against the 49ers who have gotten volume have gotten it done. Hockenson had 12 targets. They got him to 86 yards. Trey McBride had 11 targets. He had 102 yards. Even early in the season, Zach Ertz had 53 yards, but on 10 targets. But when tight ends didn't get targets, they held Darren Waller to 3 for 20, Njoku to 24 yards, Evan Ingram on 7 targets. They held him to 12 yards. So when they have the ability to come out and stop, they can. That's going to be one of the biggest matchups of the game of how they deal with Kelsey. Now, in terms of the safety coverage, Tayshaun Gibson and Jair Brown, Gibson is the free safety, and he sees more work as a pass defender, but both Gibson and Jair Brown are above average in coverage. They're not elite, but they are way above average. So they're outstanding. And like I said, Fred Warner, but also don't sell out Dre Greenlaw either. He is very much above average in coverage. So they have other options that they can use on Kelsey if they so choose. Now, in terms of the pass rush and the pass protection, a lot of it's a moot point because we see Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes knows how to avoid sacks. That's the beauty of what he does. He'll extend time. He'll throw the ball down with his left hand if he has to. Whatever he has to do to avoid a sack, he can. Now, the matchup would be a big benefit to the 49ers if it wasn't for Mahomes. I mean, you've got Donovan Smith, the left tackle, below average, slightly, but below average. Jawan Taylor on the right side, he has gotten a little better as the season going on. They haven't been calling as many flags. I mean, he does the same thing. He's still offsides all the time, but they don't call as much. I don't know what that whole deal is, but he's just average. So, but again, earlier I said the Chiefs will play 2 and 3 tight end sets, so they can augment the help out there. But Nick Bosa, especially when they're not in the heaviest personnel, Nick Bosa has a big advantage whatever side he's on, and even Chase Young does. And on the interior, we said earlier, Joe Thuney, he's an elite pass protector. Assuming he misses this game, Hargrave and Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, they do get an advantage. Now, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, they are good in pass protection. But Trey Smith is a little less. He's more on the average side, whereas Creed Humphrey's above average. They're not as good as a pair in pass pro as they are in run defense. So overall, the 49ers, they don't blitz a lot. They do a lot of 4-man fronts, and they let the rest of their defense play. And I don't know they're going to change it because, again, Mahomes can just break plays, and I don't think you're going to waste those resources. So don't look for a lot of blitzing in this game, and also don't look for a lot of sacks because Mahomes knows how to avoid those. There could be a couple sacks. I don't expect it to be a lot here. Hargrave would be the one. He can be a game wrecker from the inside, and he will be a player to watch. But again, Mahomes' ability to break it, just it's hard to bet a sack on the 49ers. So how do we predict this game out? We went over to 4 sides of the ball. As I said, I fully expect the 49ers to go with a run-heavy approach, use Christian McCaffrey as much as you possibly can. There's no tomorrow. He has all the time in the world to rest. He 2 weeks off. He should be fully rested. You make this game about McCaffrey. Now, will they? I can't guarantee it, but they should. And then you build everything off of that. Debo heavily involved. George Kittle. Ayuk may get sacrificed. L'Jarius Sneed, as I said. So there's that set. So that really is an offense that should be able to cook. Spagnuolo may not have the answers for that because I don't know that there are answers for McCaffrey. And now it's a complex run system with great blocking. On the other hand, though, the 49ers, in my opinion, they could have real answers for the Chiefs if they coach this game up well. They could find ways to lower Rice, lower Kelsey, and again, Pacheco, let him do what he does. He's not going to kill you. They can slow them down. But when we make a prediction, the biggest problem we all have is they have Patrick Mahomes. It's that simple, right? I mean, you know what Patrick Mahomes can do. He can make the impossible possible. And that's why the betting market, that's the main thing I'm hearing in the betting market. People aren't saying, oh, man, this is the great offense. No, they're not saying that. They're saying the defense is very good and the Spagnuolo is, and they're right. But the discussion is Patrick Mahomes is going to win. And the betting angle is this. It's that, well, I'm getting points with Patrick Mahomes. How do I pass it? And logically, how do you argue with that, right? Patrick Mahomes getting points. That doesn't happen, right? So I go back to my initial point at the beginning of the show, though. Vegas has not moved that line despite 70% of the money and the bets coming in on the Chiefs. They have not moved the line. They want Chiefs action. The betting markets are not about handing money away. The inaction on that line tells me the books believe the 49ers are covering this game. That's what they're saying, because that line would have moved to a pick 'em. It might even have moved to the Chiefs -1. It hasn't. Watch the line through the weekend, especially if that line doesn't move come Sunday. A ton of money comes in on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Wait to bet it. If you're on the 49ers side, wait. Just wait. The line ain't going to get any more. It's only going to go less if it does at all. But if that line doesn't move, Chiefs money is going to continue to pour in. Again, I had the marathon. I had 58 people on. About 80% of them went Chiefs. All the shows I hear, Chiefs. A couple people, once in a while, will say 49ers. So Shanahan against Spagnuolo. It's a matchup of the geniuses. And yes, Spagnuolo has great pieces on his defense. He's got a pair of great corners. You got Chris Jones. I haven't even talked about Chris Jones. Game wrecker in the middle. If it comes down to the 49ers having the pass, he could destroy the passing game by crushing the pocket. He has big mismatches on these, and I'll get to his prop later. But that said, the 49ers, with 2 weeks, have more ways to exploit the Chiefs on both sides of the football. And I know the quarterback advantage is massive for the Chiefs. But if you make this game the McCaffrey offense against the Mahomes offense, don't get upset at me for saying this. McCaffrey is no less of a superstar than Mahomes is. McCaffrey and him are both top of the rock superstars, and they both could carry a team. And McCaffrey have given that work in this system. I believe he can control the field as well as Mahomes can. Now, that might be a little outrageous for some people, but I think that highly of Christian McCaffrey as a runner and a receiver. So that's the thing. You sell out to stop him as a runner, he could crush you as a receiver. So, and that all said, the Chiefs, like I said, they certainly have Mahomes. My pick is the 49ers 23-16. It's the season of the unders. I believe these teams are both going to have to run the ball a lot. I believe the 49ers have the slowest pace of play in the league. Chiefs are 12th slowest. They aren't pushing the clock. I don't think either team gets a big lead, so there's not going to be chasing going on here. I don't think either team is going to be able to do that offensively, have that much success. Again, they grind the clock down. And so 47.5, I am going under, and I have this game significantly under that. That said, in the betting market, 64% to the overs right now, and I think that's going to continue there as well. The overs are going to get bet. It's a Super Bowl. It's two high-profile teams, but it's been the season of the under for a reason. This game profiles as an under game because of the defenses, and the 49ers haven't been great. But again, they have specific answers for this team. So if you believe in Patrick Mahomes and you can't bet against him, definitely don't take my advice in this game. If you've got to say, I'm going with the best of all, after Brady, the best of all time, then bet with that. Don't let me steer you away from that, because you'll come up on Monday and say, man, I told you Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, he certainly can. Ultra superstar. So that said, I'm going 49ers. Now, the under, like I said earlier, 49ers. And Lee, let's see what Lee said. So, you got Chad. Crazy thing if Tony plays, I'm going to end up MVP. Nice. Oh, my gosh. Would that be something, huh? Oh, my gosh. He should return punts in this game. He could be in for a couple high leverage snaps, certainly, especially if they want some trickeration and they're going to go with that. Certainly, because, yeah, but that's funny. MVP. I love it. And then, and Lee, yeah, you know what? We never know what Shanahan's going to do, but I do have to think. And I know he could come up dialing up the pass, but I believe when they traded for McCaffrey, it was with this game in mind. They didn't know this game was happening, but in theory, see what I'm saying? That they have McCaffrey. This is something that Shanahan has never had in a game this high profile, and McCaffrey allows everything else to get set up. They acquired him for that reason. And I have to think that Shanahan is not going to bonk this one. I think Shanahan is not the ego guy about the passing game. He's the ego guy about the offense, and he understands his best pass. And we'll see. And Lee's predicting the 49ers. Oh, man. So, Joe Madden, one of my friends who's works with the gambling in Canada, she was on the marathon with me. She said she's going to put some money on the Chiefs money line, but she's also going to go 49ers and up the line, go way up. And then it might middle and she might hit both. She's a genius. Joe Madden is a genius. And, but she might, yeah. So I got that idea from her, but yeah, I think I'm going to kind of do the same, but I'm going to like that 49ers upping the line and increasing your odds. And Lee, thanks for the comments about nice show. All right. So let's give you some props. Let me finish the under though. I want to talk a little more about that under. So we're going to use the number 48 as our baseline because it's 47.5 in this game. The 49ers have been under that number in 11 of 19 games. And since the bye, 7 of 11 games. So their games typically go under. Now, remember, they had the chase against Green Bay, and the game they had to chase, Detroit. The Detroit game they had to chase. The Baltimore game they had to chase. Those two games they had to chase points, and they went over. Now, the Chiefs have had game totals under 48 in 16 of 20 games. These teams have gone under 48 the majority of the time. Like I said earlier, they both will be motivated to run the football. And again, they both play at slower pace. 49ers the slowest. And again, I said earlier, the Chiefs the 12th slowest pace. So there's that. Now, if you think the game, some teams going to get out to a big lead, that would be an over game. But like me, if you think it's going to stay closer out, neither team's going to need to completely open it up and take too many chances. And so I do think the under has a great probability of hitting. Now, in terms of props, if you think the 49ers are going to win, betting Christian McCaffrey as the MVP, and that those odds, I got it at 475, plus 475. I heard somebody mention it might be plus 450 now. Still great odds. If you think the 49ers are going to win, and if you believe that Kyle Shanahan is going to make this about the Christian McCaffrey offense, then I think you do that. If you look back at Super Bowl MVPs, yeah, we haven't had a running back win it, I believe, since Emmitt Smith. But we've had, the Cooper Kupps of the world win it. We've had the Julian Edelmans of the world win it. And if this game is a Christian McCaffrey game and he gets a couple touchdowns and he gets 150 scrimmage yards and they only score the 26 points I'm calling for, McCaffrey's got to be your MVP. So again, that if the 49ers are going to win, I think that's a great bet to make. And then of course the rushing yards, and it might be going up a bit, but I got it at 88.5 rush yards for McCaffrey, probably go up to 90 or so. Look, he has 90 yards in 7 of his last 8 games or more. He's gone over this number. This is not a bad matchup at all. He gets big runs on occasion. So even if every run isn't a big run, and I know he maybe uses a receiver, I don't think the Chiefs can sell out to stop him because of all the other weapons Shanahan has. So I do like McCaffrey over that. And Isaiah Pacheco, I knew I threw a little bit of shade in certain ways on him, but in terms of him as a runner, he's very good at what he does. And his over prop, that's going to be going up. I got it at 66.5. That probably is up near 70 now. But he has at least 68 yards in 4 straight games, 15 to 24 carries in those games. He averages 20 carries. I do think Kansas City's best mode of attack is on the ground. As long as you think this is a close game or the Chiefs are leading, he should get there and bet the over on him. But if you think the 49ers are going to get a lead in this game and hold it, then I think Pacheco becomes less viable because at that point, the Chiefs would have to lean on the pass. So be careful of that. I always try to give you both sides. I don't want to tell you bet this, bet this. Think both sides here. So also, I like the 49ers over 1.5 rushing touchdowns. That's plus 175. If you think the 49ers are going to score 2 or more touchdowns, on the ground is probably their best way of scoring, especially if you think they're going to score 3 touchdowns. But 2 for sure. I mean, I think that's going to be McCaffrey. Debo Samuel might run one in. Purdy might run one in. The defense of the Chiefs is outstanding against the pass. I think Kittle can score, but I think the probability at plus 175 of 2 rushing touchdowns for the 49ers is solid. I like Chris Jones over 1/4 of a sack. So 0.25 at plus 110. Mentioned earlier, he's a game wrecker. And with that interior line of the 49ers, he has significant mismatches, and you can't do a whole lot to stop what he has. John Feliciano will be probably lined up against him a lot. And George Karlaftis is on the outside on that side. And so it's hard to slide help over. So Chris Jones is a great chance there. There are some other prop bets that I saw on Kelsey for the first Kansas City touchdown, I believe is plus 265. I do think if they get down in the red zone, he's the guy they're going to have to trust. The 49ers can stuff out the run game down near the goal line well. Christian McCaffrey to score 2 touchdowns has some really nice plus odds. You could turn a $10 bet into 31 on DraftKings with that. A Kelsey anytime touchdown, if you don't like that first touchdown, that'll pay you almost, to minus 110 odds. Brock Purdy under 248.5 passing yards. That'd give you about, minus 110 odds. I love George Kittle. And it's gone up from 47.5 to 49.5 yards. I still think he has at least a 70-yard game in him here because of the mismatch against the safeties and the linebackers. It's a great matchup for Kittle. And that's probably, in terms of the actual yardage props, I might even like the Kittle over a little better than McCaffrey over the rushing yards. I think those are great ones to look at. Again, the under, and again, if you like the 49ers to win, boost the lineup a little bit. All right, everybody. Appreciate you. You can catch, if you want my free notes on this game, remember at Jim Coventry NFL on the X, just like and retweet the pinned tweet. And then if you don't get those notes DM to you by Saturday, just you remind me, because somehow it would slip by, but I always look for them and I send out the links right away when I notice them. Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87. I'll be on Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 3 Eastern. More Super Bowl coverage for you. More insight with Mario Puig on Saturday, Alan Soslowski on Sunday. We'll recap this game on Monday, this channel where you're watching right now, 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday. And then we'll start to go in a little off-season hiatus. I'll take a week or two off, and then we'll get rolling when we come March again. Eddie, have a great weekend. Lee, everybody who was here, thank you. Appreciate you. Enjoy the Super Bowl. And go Chiefs, go 49ers, and let's see a classic Super Bowl.